Linda Galvad covers all you need to know to get your seedlings into the garden, bringing you one step closer to reaping the rewards of organic vegetable gardening.
When your seedlings are ready to grow in the ground, these are, they've been ready for quite a while. You could have already planted these into the ground when they were about 4 centimeters high. When your seedlings are pretty small and you're scared because of inclement weather, you can use protection like this plastic cloche, which is basically a recycled plastic bottle. We've cut off the bottom and the top. You plant your seedling into the ground and you fit this over snugly. You make sure that it's about 1 centimeter into the ground around the little seedling. It will not only protect the seedling from wind, harsh weather, perhaps even hail. You can do this in winter. Just make sure you leave the top of the bottle on so you can protect it from frost as well. Right, you can't leave these on for the entire duration of the plant's growth. You do need to take it off when the plant is about this size. Then it's strong enough to be growing on its own. When you're going to transplant your seedlings into the ground, you need to be aware that moving them from one environment to the other can cause what's called transplant shock. So the plant actually goes under stress when you take it out of one environment and put it into the other. We are going to show you how to eliminate as much stress as possible, but a great idea is to make these little biodegradable pots. The beauty of these is they go directly into the soil once the seedling is big enough. You don't have to remove the paper at all, and it provides absolute protection and zero transplant shock. What we have here is about 8 centimeters wide of newspaper. We've got a wine bottle that has a concave or convex bottom, whichever way you want to look at it. We're going to place this piece of newspaper absolutely flat in front of us and put the wine bottle so it can start at the end, one end. We're going to roll this along. It's important to leave about a 2.5 centimeter space at the bottom, from the bottom of the wine bottle to the bottom of the piece of newspaper. What we do is we then push the bottom in and slowly pull the bottle out, and we have a perfect biodegradable pot. Right. Love using my hands. So let's just fill the pot. Remember, you have to keep your seed moist so that it can keep growing happily. Don't be fooled. Newspaper is quite hardy. When it gets wet, it's obviously going to tear, but it does dry and, last long enough for the plant to grow to a decent height to put it straight into the ground. So let's move that over there. What we have here is a vegetable spaghetti squash. The bigger the seed, the bigger the root. So the roots will quite comfortably be able to push themselves through the newspaper. Don't let this deter you. You can use any size seed to do this. Also, the diameter of this pot allows the seedling to grow in this environment for quite a long time. You'll be surprised. The best thing to do really is to have a few of them already made, put into a container and put them next to each other so they can support each other. So you make your 1 centimeter hole, put your seed in, cover it up, and place it inside your plastic container. Obviously, you're going to water this with a fine rose spray, and you're going to make sure that these are kept in a sunny spot, constantly moist. When you've grown your seedlings in like a mollycoddled environment, either on a sunny windowsill or you've grown them in a greenhouse, you have to do what's called hardening off. What that's about is getting the little seedling accustomed to the environment. You take your seedling trays out for a couple of hours a day, 1 to 2 weeks, and by that stage you'll notice a few strange things. One, the green of the leaf will become darker, and the leaf itself to the touch will actually feel thicker, and that's why it's called hardening off. So we have our heirloom tomatoes over here, and we are going to plant them out. But we want to give them the best start to life, and how you do that is you bring in some friends. The idea of companions are truly amazing. What we have here is marigolds, stink Afrikaners, tomatoes and basil. There are so many different relationships, just like in human relationships. Sometimes you really get on with somebody, sometimes you really don't like that person. It really has a similar effect in plants. The beauty of having marigolds in your summer garden, and may I add that if you don't use anything else, keep to using marigolds and nasturtiums. Marigolds have the amazing ability of releasing something in their roots called theophene. And what theophene does is it kills off the eelworm that is responsible for giving tomato family plants root knot, a disease that in fact kills them. They also don't smell very nice, so they act as a repellent to all the pesky pests that are going to devour your delicious heirloom tomato plants. Basil, on the other hand, has a different relationship with tomatoes. What basil does is, not only does it ward off pests by saying, rather come and eat me and leave the tomatoes alone, it also enhances the flavor of the tomatoes, and tomatoes do the same for the basil plant. Now, I generally use herbs when it comes to companions because I find that when you grow herbs next to your vegetables or fruit plants, you can plant them pretty close. They don't really compete with your vegetables by stealing lots of nutrients or water or sunlight. That's the first thing. The second thing is many herbs are perennial, like your rosemary and your thyme and your oregano, so you can put them in place as a companion to a vegetable and leave them there. And when you plant another family of vegetables in the new season, you can in fact leave the original herb there. You don't have to take them out or move them. They will still give the plant that benefit of acting as a repellent in the case of those quite strong smelling herbs. Now that you know more about companions, let me go and show you some examples, and we'll plant these wonderful seedlings while we're at it. So here we have a really nicely prepared bed for our tomato marigolds. We've already got the basil companion over here. It's important to note the distance. I always say the best way to do that is to imagine the plant or the vegetable at its maturity. So for example, a cabbage. Cabbages grow to about 45 centimeters wide, and that's the planting space you should give them. So over here, we've got indeterminate tomatoes, and we're giving them about a 55 to 60 centimeter space to grow in. Okay, you can see I've already got my mulch prepared here, really important in this weather. To avoid transplanting shock, it is a good idea to water first. What this avoids is from the seedling actually falling over and then having to perk up again. It literally goes straight into the hole with water, getting attached to those roots immediately, and there's very little effect that it has on the seedling. We're going to pull the mulch around it. Remember, when the seedling is really small, you can leave a space around the actual stem. The beauty of planting marigolds or basil next to your tomatoes is that you can plant them quite close by to the plant that you want to harvest from, which in this case would be the tomato. Right, so once again, let's dig our hole first, water, and plant up that marigold. It's also a good idea to get your mulch around your marigold. Just because you're not going to eat it doesn't mean you don't have to protect it.